Well, hello guys, and welcome back to another Star vs. the Forces of Evil review. In this episode, we're taking a look at Season 1, Episode 20 and 21, Mewnipendance Day, and the Banagic Incident. Like this show just continues to keep doing, every time they have a really good episode, it's always paired with a really bad one. And Banagic Incident is pretty bad. Like, I remembered it being bad, and it's not bad in the way I expected it to be, but it's still bad. But we'll get to that. Let's get into Mewnipendance Day. So it starts off with Buff Frog spying on Star, like he always does and how we've seen. When this floating eye comes up and it startles him, we see inside the house, Star has gathered a group of people to celebrate Mewnipendance Day. They have no idea what that is, of course. The Star then pulls out a pop-up book and tells them the story of Mewnipendance Day, where Mewmans came to Mewni, had battles with monsters, and then they won, and now they celebrate Mewnipendance Day to celebrate the day they defeated the monsters. She skips over a lot of ceaseless violence, which we'll get back to and the episode gets back to. She also points out the all-seeing eye, which is this thing that goes around spying on people and reporting it to the royal family, so that way the royal family is always watching and the monsters know that. But now in a different episode, the all-seeing eye could be an entire subject in and of itself, of security versus freedom, and how much are you willing to give away, kind of like was it the Powerpuff Girls musical episode? But because of this episode has other priorities, this is just a flash in the pans. But it is showing that the royal family may or may not be wrong. Especially because the way Star talks about it, it seems as if the all-seeing eye is just security theater. It doesn't actually do anything, but the way they think about it, right? It makes monsters feel like it's doing something. And this all-seeing eye is specifically doing something because Toffee set it up for Ludo so that way they can watch Star at all times. Not a bad plan. And again, we see Buff Frog is still wary of Toffee. He doesn't trust him. We then see they get ready for this battle reenactment, and the monsters are just like in pillows and whatnot. And then the Mewmans have these armor suits and are giant armored up. And Marco's like, something's wrong here. And it starts like, yeah, you're right. The Mewmans don't have big enough weapons. Marco's like, no, you're missing the point here. Doesn't this seem a little unfair? And Star does legitimately take notice that, something is definitely off here. And we see Toffee has this plan to get the wand. She's got this mace with a portal in it that will deliver the wand to Ludo. Not a bad plan. And doing it on Mewnipendance Day, especially when one of the monsters looks just like Buff Frog, it's not a bad plan at all. But then we cut back to Star and we see that, she is noticing the problem that this battle is unfair. That even the past battle, the Mewmans had the monsters outgunned, outnumbered, you get my point. There was no way the monsters could have ever won it. Plus, as we saw earlier in the backstory, it looks as if the monsters were there first and the Mewmans just kind of took their land. There's a lot of depth going on here about, history, how history is retold, how history is told by the victors, how this actually happened, how the Mewmans just decimated the monsters, how they easily took victory, which history isn't pretty. It never is. And celebrating an Independence Day like this is something that makes sense for a culture. But yes, all things have bloody past, right? Freedom isn't ever free. What did you expect? And Star's learning this firsthand in seeing the actual battle reenactment and her friends getting the shit kicked out of them. It really does make her realize that something is wrong here. We see Buff Frog, he's making his way through. He eventually almost gets the wand, but the mace is sabotaged. When he pushes the button, it doesn't work. Toffee has sabotaged him because, like said, and we see it again in this episode, Buff Frog is the only one smart enough to see that Toffee is using Ludo. He realizes what's going on, and he's the only one that can stand up to him, so Toffee had to get rid of him. I would think this would be like a win-win scenario for Toffee. If Buff Frog wins, he gets the wand, and everything goes well for them. If he loses, well, he can get rid of Buff Frog, but he purposefully sabotages him. He'd rather lose the wand and lose Buff Frog than win and get the wand. Okay, it makes sense, because Toffee's plan is complicated, as we'll see in future episodes. But Buff Frog takes the hit, and Star thinks it's Ferguson, but then when she realizes it doesn't, she goes to blast him, but can't do it. This is her wavering on her thoughts on real monsters. Again, this episode, as I talked about in Lobster Claws, where it was setting up one of the bigger themes of the show, this is the episode that established it. That the past between humans and monsters and how humans treat monsters is complicated, and there is history of race relations and violence, or at least that's the metaphor. It's race relations. It's all about racism and how monsters are treating. The All-Seeing Eye is another great example of that. Yeah, no, it's a depth to this show that I love. It's one of my favorite aspects of the show, and while Buff Frog is actually one of my favorite characters, but in this first season, I've never really talked about it because he's never done anything extraordinary. We'll check back on again with that in the finale. But yeah, and it ends off with basically Buff Frog is fired. Toffee just wanted to get rid of him, so he does. And while Ludo just wants to punish him, Toffee basically coerces him into firing Buff Frog. Because again, he's the only one smart enough to stop Toffee, or at least counter his plans within Ludo's armies, because Ludo's army is full of idiots. And it ends off with all of our main Star group having a meal, and Star giving Buff Frog a piece of corn. Just a little show, right? It's a nice little gesture. And it's a start of what's going to be a great theme of the show, and one of the things I love about this show. And it all starts here. Yep, I love this episode. It's one of the greatest episodes in probably the entire show. The Banagic Incident, on the other hand, is probably the worst episode this season. I'm just gonna say it. I thought Fortune Cookies was bad, and Fortune Cookies definitely has its slice of life problems, or not slice, fish out of water problems. This episode is also heavily fish out of water. But the Banagic Incident, at least Fortune Cookies had Toffee. Toffee was at least right? It's setting up a greater villain for the show. The Banagic Incident doesn't even have that. This episode has no reason for existing. And if I'd have it my way, I would just completely skip over it. I mean, it's not hurting anyone or anything. This isn't like an episode that's like, you show it to your kids and you're just doing them a disservice. It's not that bad, but it's just a nothing episode. It has nothing. It has no moral. It learns nothing. And it's just a waste of time. Let's get through this as quick as freaking possible. Starts off with Star's board in a bathtub, reading a magazine. She sees a thing for the Banagic wand. We get a reference to Gone with the Wind, where Star does the never go hungry again speech, but she'll never go bored again for no apparent reason. I mean, I don't hate it. That's one of the better moments in the episode, but whatever. She's going after this Banagic wand. She asks Marco to help. They find a commercial, but Marco is busy. He has to go to karate lessons, and Star doesn't want to go to karate lessons. She wants to go find the Banagic wand. Star's kind of a pain in the ass in this episode. Really? Because Marco has something to do, and Star's just completely ignoring him. She really is. Marco says he doesn't think she's ready to go on her own, and we see her attack the mailman. Now, I've talked about this before, where they eventually do retcon this in the Magic Book of Spells, that Star actually kind of knew what was going on with Earth, but she just pretended not to know. And I've always had my doubt about that, especially here, because, I mean, understanding technology is one thing. Understanding culture is something completely different, and that's what Marco specifically says in this moment. Star doesn't understand Earth culture enough that he thinks she can go out on her own. And I think one of the reasons why I've always I've disbelieved that retcon, why I think that doesn't make any sense, is because Star is the one saying it. And especially in this episode, she's the unreliable narrator. That's why I don't trust her section in the Magic Book of Spells, because she's the unreliable narrator. Yeah, no, Star is a flawed character, and I like that about her, but I just hate these fish out of water episodes. Marco goes to karate anyways, and she gets lost. She goes to a record store. She eventually finds her way to a pirate restaurant where she thinks they're actual pirates. Again, not understanding Earth culture, and don't we see pirates, like bunny pirates in the intro? Have we ever seen those in an episode? I don't think we have. I think this is actually the closest we've ever gotten. Meanwhile, back on Marco's side of the plot, he's trying to walk a gauntlet of fire. Because, you're right, walking the burning coals, and he can't do it. Star gets chased down by the pirates, but eventually makes her way to the big box store. Marco gets pissed off with Jeremy, remember the little shit, and they get in an argument. He chases him around. Eventually he's able to capture him, but walks along the hot coals, using anger to channel it up and walk across the hot coals. Sure, I'll buy it. It works. Marco's plot, while pointless, is technically better than Star's, even though it takes up less than a fourth of the episode. Then, back at Star's, she's able to find the Banagic wand, right, at an as seen on TV store. And the pirates are mad at her, but she's like, oh, let's solve this with Banagic. So she has Banagic, which is like a banana pudding. That's what it reminds me of, is like a banana pudding. But I also do know what they're talking about with, like, there used to be these, like, things where you put, like, these special ice cubes in and would shake it, and it'd make, like, a slushy. They never worked. I thought it was a cool idea when I was a kid, but it just never worked. But yeah, and so yeah, she's had Banagic with the pirates, and all's well that ends well. And then Marco shows up, and she gives Marco some pudding, and this ending, fuck it. I'm just gonna play you the ending.
You underestimated me?
Yeah, I did. Sorry. This stuff looks delicious, though.
There was a fly on it.
Now, that may not have made any sense, and yeah, no, it doesn't make any sense within the context of the episode. I seriously have no idea what's going on. For this last, 15 seconds, everyone feels off character. Everything just feels wrong. I don't get it. What is the purpose of this? Marco admits that, yeah, she underestimated Star, and then Star just destroys his pudding. And it just feels wrong, and it just seals the gap on what is this bad episode, where it can't even have, a happy-go-lucky ending. It just has this weird, out-of-place ending. I don't like this episode at all. I've talked in the past about how there's two theories on what's bad, right? Something that's bad is... right, it's bad. It has a lot of bad things about it. But other people will say the worst, right, something bad is something that's boring. And this episode is definitely in the boring camp. Because I never laughed once. There's nothing really going for it. It's just kind of boring. Yeah, it'll keep a child entertained for 11 minutes, but that's not a good thing, really. It's a boring episode, and it just has the least good. That's what makes it worse than Fortune Cookies, is at least Fortune Cookies had toffee. This has nothing going for it. It just has the least good out of any episode. That's what makes it the worst of the season. So yeah, watch Mewnipendance Day. It's pretty good. Next time, we have Dimensional Field Trip and Marco Grows a Beard? I legitimately do not remember either of these episodes, so yeah, we'll see. I hope you all enjoyed. Stay tuned for more. Until next time, peace.